Welcome back. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Southern Shores regular meeting for May 2nd, 2023. We're glad to have you all with us this evening, this gorgeous May evening. If you would all please stand and join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we please just have a moment of silence now? Thank you. Council, we have an agenda in front of us. Do we have any amendments, or can I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We have an agenda. Council, we have a consent agenda. It includes 3 items: a budget amendment for channel markers, some approved minutes that had been emailed, and a resolution that is a pledge of support for the Lost Colony. Any discussion about the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. We'll go now to our staff reports, and we'll start out with our Deputy Town Manager, Planning Director, Wes Haskett. Good evening, Wes.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. Tonight I'll give you all a report for the month of April and a few other things. There were a total of 56 permits issued in the month of April. There were 10 zoning permits, 22 building permits. 2 of those 22 were for new construction. 1 lot disturbance stormwater management permit was issued, and then there were 23 trade permits issued. Total amount of fees collected in April was $12,820.21. With respect to code enforcement, there were 8 warning citations mailed for solid waste ordinance violation, and 1 warning citation was mailed for advertising the use of a driveway for camping. I did want to touch on House Bill 409, regulation of accessory dwelling units. This is from the North Carolina League of Municipalities brief last week. HB 409 would preempt most local regulations and allow a second residence to be built on most single-family lots in the state, was amended and voted out of the House. The bill will now move to the Senate. The measure, despite the amendment, would still require local governments to allow a second residence to be built on most single-family only lots in the state. That was amended, subject to certain statewide rules in the bill. At the same time, HB 409 would preempt many existing local ADU ordinances. Under the proposal, ADUs would not be subject to local parking requirements or owner occupancy requirements, which will likely lead to most ADUs being used for short-term rentals like Airbnbs. The amendment increases the minimum setback to 10 feet, but would still prohibit local governments from denying utility connections to the units so long as the utility has the capacity to serve both dwellings. At their April 17th meeting, the Town Planning Board unanimously recommended that the council adopt a resolution in opposition to HB 409, as well as HB 474, which requires local governments to allow small housing in residential zones. With respect to the land use plan, a public workshop was held here in the Pitch Center on April 26th. I think we had a pretty good turnout, received some good input and feedback from folks who attended. And obviously, the purpose of the workshop was to receive public input on the draft updated land use plan. The draft updated land use plan has been posted on the town website, and we will be accepting comments until May 17th or around that time. If you go to the town website, the project page for the 2022 land use plan update, there's a link on that page to go to a comment page where it asks you a few questions, and then it provides space to enter any other comments you may have. Lastly, well, going back to that, the consultant is planning on having the draft updated and revised based on the comments that we received from the public input. And the plan is to have the planning board review that in June. And lastly, the town planning board will hold its regular meeting here on May 15th at 5 o'clock. The purpose of the meeting is for the board to consider a couple of ZTAs, one of them being ZTA-22-08, a zoning text amendment application submitted by Casey Varnell on behalf of Pleasure Palace CDEC Incorporated to amend Town Code Sections 3657, 36207B, and 36209A to allow shared space occupancy dwellings in the commercial zoning district. That's a text amendment that was submitted back in June or July of last year. He withdrew the application or wanted to table it temporarily, and now he's asking to go back on the agenda. The board will also consider ZTA-2304. This is an application submitted by Matthew Huband to amend Town Code Sections 36207C1B, 207C1.5B, 207C11J, 207C11K, 207D7, and 207D8 to establish a 50-foot setback requirement for restaurants from planned unit developments. Also, a 50-foot setback requirement for drive-through facilities or establishments small from planned unit developments. A 50-foot setback requirement for mixed-use group developments from planned unit developments in residential districts. A 50-foot setback requirement for commercial buildings and facilities from planned unit developments, and a 20-foot buffer requirement where a commercial use or zone abuts a residential district or planned unit development. If time allows, and if we're able to put this together before the meeting, the board may also consider an ordinance to relinquish ETJ over the Martins Point ETJ area as directed by council. That's my report, Mayor. If y'all have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Wes, starting at the end of your report with the ETJ, have you heard from the county about the ETJ, handing it over to them?
I spoke with the planning director, Noah Gilliam, about a month ago. And at that time, he was unsure. But I've recently spoken with him, and I think that they are going to want to move forward. If not this month, next month.
Okay. And what they'll adopt something, a zoning text amendment or something?
They'll have to implement a new zoning jurisdiction or zoning district for that area, and they'll have to amend their ordinance as well to address that area.
And so we're going to wait, are we going to wait to relinquish until they have theirs in place? Is that how the transfer works?
So we would have to, we want to time it with them, because if we don't, I think it's either 40 days or 60 days, I can't remember, but if we were to take action without them being on board, they would only be given so many days to do it. So we want to make sure that we time it so that they are ready and that it works out so that they have everything in place by the time it does relinquish.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're just going to coordinate that with Mr. Gillum?
That's correct.
Got it.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
They still want to do it, right?
Last time I spoke,
We
that's,
think, right?
that was my impression. Yes, sir.
Wes, I understand that House Bill 409 has pretty much overwhelming support in the state legislature. Do you happen to know how our local legislators came down on this?
I do not. No, ma'am. I have not looked into that.
I think there was only 21 no's.
Yeah, it was very,
I mean, it was.
very small.
Overwhelming, yeah.
Wes, as much as you understand HB 409, is that anybody who owns property could have, and HB 409 supersedes what municipalities have. and counties, right? Where this
Except
is
for,
concerned?
except for a few exceptions in the state, a few locations, then yes, sir, for us, it would preempt us from regulating. The only regulations, the only regulation in the language right now is that, or the main one is the 10 feet from a property line, which was amended from 5 feet. Initially, they had it 5 feet from a property line, but you can't regulate the parking, you can't regulate the owner who occupies the structure. But in that language, it also does not have any, it doesn't preempt or it doesn't have any effect on covenants. And so the Southern Shore Civic Association, they obviously have covenants. The CPOA, they have covenants. Staff, Cliff and I are going to meet with SSCA representatives, their ARB folks, probably in the next week or two and see what they have to say about what their covenants may or may not be able to do with respect to that.
And Wes, I understand that Kill Devil Hills last week passed some local ordinances to try to put some conditions on these. Does anybody know, are those conditions the kinds of conditions that are probably not going to stand up?
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with what they put
I
into
think they were
place.
going to limit them to long-term rentals. That was one of the ones that they have. Okay, thank you.
Westwood, would you still have to comply with lot coverage?
Oh, yes, you still would have to comply with lot coverage. The 30 is still 30% in the residential zoning district.
Okay.
But it does not allow you to regulate parking or occupancy.
And what do we allow in terms of accessory anything now? What do our rules say currently?
Right now, we allow accessory structures with living space that do not constitute a quote-unquote dwelling unit, meaning, or the way it was drafted several years ago was you can have a stove or oven or a bedroom. You couldn't have both in an accessory structure that has living space. So you could have a bathroom, a bedroom, and a microwave, but you could not have a stove or oven, or you could have a stove or oven and no bedroom.
So does Bill, I know we're asking a lot of questions you may not know. So, and we're all learning, I think, as this goes through. But so if somebody had a shed on their property right now, they were in lot coverage, and they want to convert it into a living unit, they could, as long as it met certain code requirements.
If it meets building code requirements and they can meet lot coverage and setbacks,
All that.
an accessory structure can have living space. Yes, sir. Right
Yeah.
now, currently. I'm not sure about a shed, but
The occupancy restriction as well, so if the
There is an
current house,
occupancy restriction?
if the current house was a 14 occupant, they
Yeah,
couldn't
we-
convert to ADU.
it also contributes to the 6,000 square foot of enclosed living space on a lot.
So we would still have in place the 6,000 square feet limit, the 14-person occupancy limit,
The covenants,
the covenants, and the 14 septic capacity that's in place. And that would apply to the whole lot. Like if you were looking at somebody coming through the door for a permit, you would look at all of those things before you would be able to issue a permit.
We would, absolutely. I'm not sure if this legislation would preempt in any way our occupancy, 14-person septic capacity. I mean, I doubt it,
We
but
don't know yet.
it certainly wouldn't have any effect on lot coverage,
Okay.
and certainly not on covenants.
I really think that the planning board supported doing a resolution, but I really think that Councilmember Sherlock pointed out, I think this legislation is already going to happen. So I really think that would be kind of a waste on our part. And I'm hopeful that we've got in place at least some, guardrails. So I'll leave it at that, I guess.
Cliff just handed me a note saying that it passed 113-7.
Oh, wow.
second reading, 7 no's.
It passed what?
113-7.
Just the house.
Yeah,
And one of our local House representatives was an aye for that vote.
okay.
They both did? Both of our local representatives
Both.
Both voted aye.
voted in favor.
Okay.
So does our council know how the Senate feels
I got it.
in the state? I mean, if they got that kind of approval in the House, you're right, I think the horse is out of the
I
barn.
think it's already gone there.
It's gone. That's amazing.
The parking and the 10-foot setback is the painful element. to
Yeah.
this.
Mhm.
Yeah, I agree.
And hopefully there'll still be some negotiation if it goes to Senate.
Again, I think it's the rule of unintended consequences. I think the legislature is trying to, work towards contributing to the lack of housing that is not just here in Dare County, but all across the state. And so, I just think that in this case, it's not something that should be legislated from Raleigh, that we would have a better way to handle our own communities. So I'll leave it at that.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Wes? Thank you very much, sir.
All right,
Appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Chief Colt, you're up. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. The Police Department report for April 2023, as you can see up there on the screen. The calls for service, there were 1,429. That's actually 286 less than we had last year. So April was a little bit slower. As you can see, we had 5 incidents that were reported, which were crimes, for a total of 7 charges. One was a hit and run, 3 were drug related and drug equipment, and 1 was a driving while intoxicated. The arrest was the DWI, and the drug cases are ongoing. Officers handed out 10 written citations for a total of 14 charges for April, and another 21 warning citations for a total of 23 actual charges. We had 0 ordinance violations, and we had 5 motor vehicle accidents for the month of April. Questions?
What kind of drugs were involved?
Meth, heroin, and I think 1 may have been marijuana. It's illegal in Virginia, but they find out that it's still not legal here, so, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much. Chief Limbacher? Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. So for the month of April, Fire Department responded to 50 calls, and that's, again, about normal for this time of year. And it's 1 building fire, 1 natural vegetation fire, excessive or scorched heat, which was an overheated breaker, 28 EMS calls, 1 motor vehicle accident, 1 surf rescue, 3 hazardous conditions, 6 service calls, which are basically our address signs, our beach wheelchair program, smoke detectors, 4 dispatched canceled en route, 1 odor of smoke, and 3 alarms. And that puts us approximately 16 called behind last year, so. Well, that's kind of a good thing. I'm always worried where it's going to get me in the summer. We always average out between 750 and 800 calls a year, so. Any questions?
I just have one. What is a good intent call? I'm sure I should know that.
Well, I break them out. Good intent is a general characteristic, but I break them out into actual, if you were looking at the report, as you can see, the 321s, good intent is just broken out. And that's your service calls and things like that. It's just a general category. I'm more specific with the actual breakdown on the backside.
Thank you,
Anything
Chief.
else?
Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Next, we'll have our town manager, Cliff Ogburn. Good evening, Cliff.
Good evening. Thank you. I'm going to move my order just a little bit and move the discussion about seasonal traffic mitigation to the to the end of my report as we talk about traffic. We'll transition. I'll start it off. We can then, I think the order of the agenda goes public comment and then discussion. I'll start off with beach nourishment. If you look on the screen, you can see where that orange circle is at the southern end of Duck. That's the Army Field Research Pier. That's how much distance they've got to go. Oh, I'm sorry. That's the southern boundary of the project. If you go up north towards that first shaded block, that's the distance they have to go to finish the project in Duck. So that's about a quarter of a mile. I'm told that they'll finish that about May 12th. They'll be in Southern Shores that day or the next day to do our project. It'll take about 2 days to do our project, and they'll start demobilizing around the 15th. You remember that the Weeks has 1 week for demobilization, and they have to complete that. They can't complete that the Friday before Memorial Day to Memorial Day, but it looks like they very well may be finished with the project and demobilized and gone by that point. The sand fence there's still sand fence that has to be placed north of 4th Avenue. Some of that sand fence that you see at Chickhawk will be going to Duck. Some will be going north of 4th Avenue, and the rest of it is surplus that Weeks will, during the time they demobilize, they'll take it to the county for storage. There's some excess sand fence that the town has because I think I've told you that the CAMA had a rule interpretation along the way that we couldn't put 2 stacks of sand fence. But once the sand fence that's been placed gets covered up, then we can come back and put more. The beach grass, I've had some folks ask about that. We planted beach grass from Kitty Hawk Pier up to 104 Ocean Boulevard, and there's a gap from there to 132 Ocean Boulevard, and where we planted it up to Hickory. Quite frankly, there's a window for planting grass, and we got as much done as we could in that window. We've already got the beach grass funded and ordered and ready to go when the next window opens up. So we'll fill in those gaps in the fall. Also, it's Ken Wilson with CPE has submitted to each of the 4 towns a proposal for the monitoring, the 2023 monitoring of our project. It's about $33,000 to do this. It's the annual surveying that goes into designing the next project. It also goes into maintaining the maintenance plan for the town. As you know, you have to have each beach nourishment project has to have a maintenance plan. You have to stick to that maintenance plan so that when a federally declared storm comes along, you can claim any of the sand that you lost. The surveying that happens during this monitoring sets the benchmark. We do a survey after a storm, and we can claim a FEMA reimbursement for that difference. So I'll be bringing that to you at your June meeting.
Is that 33,000 per town or for all 4 towns?
Per town.
Per town.
Yeah, and that's right in line. It's actually a little bit less than we've paid in the past, and I think it's because they've developed the maintenance plan, and so this monitoring is just supplementing that plan that's already in place. Let's see, next.
There's a, on beach nourishment, sorry. There's
I'm
a
sorry.
update meeting tomorrow, is that correct?
Yes,
Duck?
there's a bi-weekly meeting. I think the public meeting is at 1:30.
Okay.
And that'll,
And anyone can go if they want, if they're interested.
right. And I believe
Okay.
there's
At
also,
Duck Town Hall?
Mhm.
Okay,
there may be a Zoom connection as well.
okay. All right, very good, thanks.
Let's see, the the channel dredging. If you look on this map, you'll see the area that I'm talking about goes out from the mouth of the creek into Currituck Sound. And back on April 18th, I met with the Martins Point Homeowners Association and the SSCA to talk about the need for dredging the channel. Back in the second phase of the canal project, back in 2013, the channel dredging project was added to the permit that the town had for phase 2 of the canal dredging. The discussion at that time was the towns would, the idea was that the towns would enter an MOA, a memorandum of agreement that would dictate what would happen the next time the channel needed to be dredged. That MOA was never approved, but where it was left was the three groups would get back together and discuss how do we move from here. And so that's kind of where we are. Also part of that understanding was the town had the CAMA permit to do the canal dredging. We had the permit to do the channel dredging, that you could maintain that permit and keep it open. So for maintenance, you just come back and work under that permit. That permit expired. So in order to do this, if we do this and the town participates, we're going to need to get another CAMA permit to start this. I think we can get a 10-year maintenance. So that means that anytime, if we get the permit, anytime during the next 10 years, we'll be able to maintain the channel. The depths, the idea was that it would, on average, maintain a 6-foot depth. I think it's at 2 and 3 feet at some places. So my ask is to find out if the council wants to pursue this. I don't yet have a cost estimate for this. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,600 cubic yards. A lot of it depends on whether or not it's hydraulic dredging or whether or not it's mechanical dredging. I've spoken with Doug Dorman, engineer with Atlantic Environmental Consulting. He can do the entire permitting for $8,000, and then I can come back to you and tell you how much it's going to cost. Or as an option to that, we can contract with Doug for $1,500 and come back in June, and I can present to you a full package of, okay, this is what it's going to cost. I can go back and meet with these two groups again and come up with the cost match, who's going to pay what to do this, maybe get that MOA in place with an understanding of a little more, because I'm just coming to you out of the blue right now. This is the first time you've had this presented to you, and that hopefully that MOA would set us up for the next time we expect to dredge. Just like the maintenance and monitoring plan for beach nourishment, we know ahead of time when the day is coming we have to re-nourish the beach. We need to have the same thing in place if we're going to continue the path of channel dredging. So my question is this something you would like for me to proceed on? Is it something we want to invest the $1,500 to see a little bit better detail of how much it's going to cost? And what that does is Doug can better determine the depths, the lengths, the width of what needs to be dredged. Another third alternative is, it's really getting ahead of myself, but if we get a permit to dredge the channel, we should probably be thinking about, does it make sense to we're doing this backwards from what we did last time. We needed to do the canals, we added the channel. Now we need to do the channel. Should we be thinking ahead of getting the canals permitted? It might be 5, 6, 7, 10 years down the road, but that's another option. So I guess that's my ask at this point is, what do I need to do to put you in a position to direct me how to proceed? What more information?
We don't own the channel.
We do not. We don't own the channel. The channel's not in the town's jurisdiction.
Or the Civic Association.
It's part inland waters, part joint waters, but not in the
State
town's
waters,
jurisdiction.
whatever it is.
Yep, I think it's safe to say that if collectively or individually, that's the way this gets dredged. If the three parties together or separately would have to take this on, and I don't know that would occur unless it was a joint attempt.
That channel moves with the wind.
Yeah, and that's a good point because,
The channel fills in, it goes out, it fills in, it comes out, it goes in.
Yeah,
Anybody who's a boater knows that.
when there's aquatic vegetation, which is big, you don't mess with the aquatic vegetation. So when you maintain a channel, you can't move the markers because you're moving it to a place that's not permitted. So that would be an easy solution. As it moves, you move the markers, but you're in violation of some major issues when you do that.
Doesn't Dare County have a dredge now?
The,
Huh? Have them pop up there and finish it for,
I don't think 6 feet.
you pay taxes in Dare County too.
I do know that Collington Harbor has a hydraulic dredge that they've purchased that we could possibly be available for use, for rent.
Which
But that's a
goes all-
hydraulic, and that means we'd have to have identified land to place it. If you do mechanical dredge, you can take it just about anywhere.
Have the other two entities made any sort of financial commitment to this?
At the same reading of how we got to where the town was going to take care of the CAMA permit, in that same reading, the deal was 15% Martins Point. At the time, it was 15% Boat Club, 30% SSCA, which is now 45% SSCA and 40% town. That's not that's not been voted on. That's not been something y'all have approved, but that's where we're starting.
So something that you shared with council earlier in the week after you met with Martins Point and the SSCA was the original agreement spoke to the public aspect of the channel. And I think it mentioned the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I think it mentioned the Southern Shores Police. And I'm probably missing another one that it mentioned. So I guess my question is there truly a public use of this channel that would justify an outlay of public funds?
I'm going to get on a philosophical soapbox here, and I apologize in advance. But that anybody can use that canal. You know, anyone in the world theoretically can put their boat through that canal. The difference is not everyone can access it the same way. And so unless, I mean, for all practical intent and purposes, unless you're a member of the SSCA, you would have to use that, you're a Town of Southern Shores resident, and to use that canal, you would have to put your boat in Kitty Hawk to get there. But it is, to answer your question, it is a public accessible canal. It's just not the same access, I guess I should say.
So does emergency response or the police force use it?
Not the police force.
You got rid of your boats.
Fire doesn't have a boat.
Do we have an emergency response?
Coast Guard uses it.
Yeah.
Coast Guard use it? Okay.
There is also,
Private sector towboat, US, sea tow.
Okay.
They pull boats in and out.
Private sector like CETO.
the state has a shallow draft inlet fund that would pay 75% of the cost of dredging in inland waters. And so that, again, is something I don't know the answer to yet, but that's an available sum of money, pot of money we can reach for.
I think we need more information.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need a whole lot more. I
I
mean,
think we need to know what the,
anybody can go down the canals in the city.
Right.
I mean, the summertime, it's like a parade sometimes. From
Right.
folks that are just, tooling around, they put in across in Currituck or whatever, and they're just tooling around, checking things out, so.
Yeah.
I didn't know we owned the channel. I don't think we own the channel.
don't.
So I just don't see how we are responsible. But let's just figure out what the MOA is. I mean, you're saying the MOA was not adopted.
That's right. Yeah, and another reason why I'm bringing this now is because there's a window for dredging, and in order to make that window, November to February is the window for dredging. And so in order to make that, if we're going to try and make it this year, we'd have to move pretty quickly. I understand it's about 4 to 5 months to get permitted, to get the permits in place for this.
If you do mechanical, you have to find a place to put spoils.
That's right. And that's kind of the expectation I've laid out there is the town's, if we're going to participate in this, the town's not responsible for finding the the location to place the spoil. I mean, Martins Point or SSCA is going to have to find a place for that disposal.
And the town also does not, I mean, it doesn't have to be a public entity that gets the permit. The SSCA or Martins Point
That's right.
Boat Club, Yacht Club, wherever they are, can get their own permit.
Correct.
So are you do you have a recommendation?
Well, if this is something you all want to pursue, I'd like to be able to engage Doug at least the $1,500 to be able to come in June and then present to you a much clearer picture of what you can expect.
Cost portrait, yeah. I mean, I'd be in favor of assisting SSCA to keep that channel operational for our citizens and their members, but having a picture of the overall cost would be important.
Is the 1,500 our portion of this gentleman's cost, or is it just the whole cost?
That's the whole cost. And
So are we asked to pay the whole cost, or are we asked to pay a portion of that?
we can ask, well, I can ask the same
You
split.
can ask.
Well, if we're all in this together, I think we should be all in this together.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an expense that could be shared.
third.
And then simultaneously revisit a memorandum or group understanding of responsibilities going forward.
Okay.
Actually execute a document, something that we can consider.
Perfect.
So I think we're asking you to come back to us in June
Yeah.
with more information with the gentleman, and we'll go from there.
How many years from when the canals were built to when they dredged them the first time?
Mm.
I heard
They were bad.
I heard it was 30-some
It
years,
was
Decades.
quite a long time.
decades, yeah.
They were bad when they were getting dredged.
So, I mean, there's a long-term plan since we own them now to make sure that they're navigable, I guess.
Right.
Or at least
Yeah.
there's a channel down the middle. Okay. So that would be part of this guy's recommendation, not recommendation, but just tell us what we need.
I think he'd be able to tell us how we would put the two together.
Yeah.
What it would take to run the course together instead of,
I see this
Permitting.
going somewhere with our street maintenance program, our 10-year program for
Yes.
street maintenance. That's probably somewhere where this needs to go. somewhere.
Yeah. and you all have recognized that need. I mean, in this year's budget, you made an appropriation, one-time appropriation for the
Right.
canals. And also say your capital reserve fund allows you to budget for the canals, but your capital reserve fund does not permit you to use that to fund the channel maintenance.
Right.
So
Just the
that would be
canals.
new money.
Okay.
Okay, we'll
All right.
put that as an agenda item on June.
Okay.
So you can get them to pay.
Yes, sir. And then also in June, my plans to bring to you the contract for street paving for this coming summer. We had one bid. It was a very, very strong, favorable bid. We're looking at how we might be able to do additional work and bring that contract to you in June. The contractor said he could probably start that month or July. And that's primarily, again, a 2-inch mill and fill on several streets in town. Also, speaking about the canals, there's been, a few folks have complained about the milfoil in the canals. There's a program with the North Carolina Aquatic Weed Control Program. They can they'll do an evaluation of our canals. It's a cost share of $1,000. I've committed to, to see if we have a problem, what we can do about it, and try and get a better response to that. So that'll be coming. And then traffic. I killed as much time as I could to get to traffic, I guess. And forgive me, I've got some things here I just want to read to make sure I don't forget anything. But over the years, the last several years, in particular the last 3 years, the town has tried several measures to an attempt to mitigate seasonal cut-through traffic. A lot's been tried. Some of the measures were successful, while others possibly made things worse. After many public meetings, studies, and committee work, here's a few of the things that have been attempted thus far. We started out with no left turns, and over the years, we increased the number of weekends that no left turns were prohibited. these are no left turns for folks on 158 making a left turn onto South Dogwood. We started with about 4 weekends, I think, and that morphed into about 8 weekends the last 2 years before this summer. And the reason we didn't do it this past summer is because the intersection is not in our jurisdiction. So Kitty Hawk has to agree to allow us to put this in place before DOT will agree. Kitty Hawk is not comfortable with us continuing to do that, partly because U-turns are permitted in the bypass. And that's a safety concern. And as you know, cars just find the first place they can turn around to come back to make the turn. Also, it pushes traffic to other places. You know, when we had these in place, the folks on Juniper saw more traffic. And it's an example of the fact that traffic's like water and it's going to find a way. We've made some great progress with the travel apps. You've got a resolution you're going to consider when you talk about the mitigation. And Waze, of course, we've communicated the most with, and that kind of by default includes Google, since Google has bought Waze. And this has allowed us to try and manipulate the maps, but the resolution you're going to consider would put a permanent roadblock for any street off of 158 or NC12 into town. Waze would place a permanent lock there, so anyone who's coming is not going to have a direction to turn left. So when a car ends up at Hickory and East Dogwood and they get stopped by a police officer and the response is, the app told me to do this, that shouldn't be the case as a result of this. That's a big win for us. But it's only as good as it only helps the person who's using the app. Anyone who's been here, lives here, knows the deal. That is a very fitting noise. I guess that's the
Yeah, I guess that's an
congestion.
appropriate noise for the topic. Sorry, Cliff.
I'm going off the rails here.
Thanks for taking care of that, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Sorry.
So that's a big win because
Can you go back for a second?
Yeah.
If we adopt this ordinance, that's what you're talking about.
The
right,
resolution.
the resolution.
Resolution, I'm sorry, the resolution. That gives, say that again, it gives the.
It
we
means
put a
that-
sign up that says no through traffic.
Waze will recognize all of those streets that
Right.
intersect with
12.
158 and 12 as being no through traffic, and it'll put a block there.
Okay,
So you won't get a direction to go down South Dogwood. If you type in you're going to Duck, it's going to take you 158 to 12.
Okay.
But again, if you know where you're going and you know what you're doing,
Right.
you're going to do it anyway.
folks have been here for.
But it should help.
So does that allow us then to put a road sign up that says no through traffic?
Yes, but a lot of the issues that we've run into are legal issues. They're constitutional issues, and that's a big issue. A no through traffic means a police officer has to have a reason to follow a car to see whether or not they actually are driving through, and that's the issue with those. We've done education and outreach. We've had multiple message boards. The mayor did a video that the property managers agreed to send to their renters that were coming in, and I'm paraphrasing, "We're glad you're coming, don't cut through Southern Shores." We've put a lot of effort into the Build the Bridge. Numerous advocacy steps were taken. You took a lead on submitting an amicus brief in support of NCDOT against the Southern Environmental Law Center. Recently, the Fourth Circuit sided with DOT, and since they've denied the Southern Environmental Law Center's request for a rehearing. So now the only avenue that they have to continue this is to the United States Supreme Court, and it's very doubtful they'll hear this. The barricades, we've put barricades up all throughout town, and we've done it to completely block streets. We've done it to block a portion of a street and we started with local traffic only. We put up cones. We have progressed into full-on Jersey walls now, these plastic barricades that we have. But again, the legal restrictions of enforcement of those, people ask, why aren't you enforcing that? And the police officer cannot pull someone over on suspicion or a hunch that because their license plate says Pennsylvania, they must not be local traffic. We placed a chain across East Dogwood Trail to prevent cars from making a left-hand turn, and the chain was torn down, and it resulted in heated altercations with folks. We completely blocked Hickory Trail in East Dogwood, which was probably the biggest complaint that I've had of all that we've done. It worked for a few, but it backed traffic up to the cemetery. Folks were moving the barricade, and it also resulted in heated confrontations. And a lot of what we're doing here is just pitting neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend, and the confrontations in this day and age are kind of scary. We've lowered the speed limit. We dropped the speed limit on NC 12 from 45 to 35. And so some of the suggestions that we haven't done is put up a gate, close the road, put up the gate at South Dogwood. We can close a road, but we have to close it to all town residents for the same reasons I've said before, is that that if we were to allow that someone would have the ability to make a claim of equal protection if we're preventing non-residents from accessing public streets. And we haven't as a town looked favorable. I mean, beyond the legal challenges, we got past that. We're not a gated community. There's logistical issues of who and how you let folks through. UPS, FedEx, how am I getting to Duckwoods? How's my guest, my renter, my friend getting here? And it's very costly because it's a domino. If you put one at South Dogwood, you're going to be asked to put one at Juniper, and then you're going to have to put one at East Dogwood all the way up NC 12. And there's close the bridge, close one of the bridges, close the Dick White Bridge. That's a big concern for public safety, for access, being able to now, we don't have access to all the residents that we had before. It also creates, as you can imagine, a stacking issue. The first couple of years it takes to get this message out, you have a line of cars, one person going and everyone else is following, and now we have 10, 15, 20 cars stacked up at East Dogwood with nowhere to turn around. I'm glad I think all these folks are here probably to talk about this, to give their input. This obviously been going on since the 80s, and I know these folks are frustrated, and I know they want us to do more than we're doing, but it's a big challenge. It's a problem that we've pushed from one place to another. We've never solved it, but I'm thankful that they're here, and I look forward to hearing their comments.
Council, anybody want to talk to Cliff about anything before we go to our attorney? Okay. Philip, welcome. Good evening. Thanks for being here.
That report, I was going to tell you that the Fourth Circuit had denied that rehearing.
Cliff already
It's
said.
on my thunders.
Yeah. And your estimation of the odds of the Supreme Court accepting this case would be?
I never like to bet on what a court is going to do, but I can't imagine they're going to hear this case. And I can't imagine the Southern Environmental Law Center would want them to hear this case. I suspect they would probably let it go.
Okay.
They'd run a risk of this Supreme Court probably deciding the case in a way they would like it. That may affect their ability to delay more projects going forward. So I suspect they'll let it lay.
How long do they have before they would have to file to ask to be heard by the Supreme Court?
I don't know the exact date the order came down denying the rehearing, but I suspect it's probably 30 to 60 days after that.
Very good. Thanks, Philip.
Sure.
Appreciate you being here tonight.
Glad to be here.
It's now time for general public comment. And we do have a couple people, thank you, Bonnie and Sheila, for passing it along, that have signed up. But I know that there are many more people here in the room. So if you change your mind and decide you want to talk to us, we're here to listen. That's why we're here. All we ask you to do is come up to the podium, tell us your name and where you live. And I believe we're going to try to keep you to about 3 minutes, but if you'll just be respectful of everyone's time, that would be great. So first on the list is Mr. George Berry. Good evening, George.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before I speak, I would like to pass on something. Most of you know, I'm the Commodore of the Southern Shores Boat Club. And I did a survey. This is not part of my question here. I did a survey because I wanted to find out how many people in the Southern Shores had boats, because they should all be in the boat club, right? Well, guess what? Most of them aren't. Most of the people who have boats in the town are not in the Southern Shores Boat Club, because I was looking for more members to have a good time. I thought it was really surprising. So when when you're talking to the Civic Association and maybe me, most of us don't have boats. Matter of fact, the Southern Shores Boat Club, 70% of us don't even have boats. We just come for a good time, as you all know. So it's convoluted, but it's interesting. The tax base is owned by the Dare County tax people, and they know who has boats. And you might consider looking into a tax on Southern Shores boats to cover canals, dredging, all those water things. So something to think about when you're doing your assessment, as opposed to hitting different organizations. Hit the people who have the boats, right? Anyway, so now I'd like to start start again. Anyway, so traffic. We all love traffic, right? You know, it's here, it's there, it's everywhere, and it's been going on for a long time. I think it's commendable you've come up with a resolution on something to do with traffic. I think it's good. So you got two options. Close the road in some way. You guys figure out how to do that. Good luck. The other is do nothing and hope and pray for the bridge. This is as big as beach nourishment. This is a huge thing that affects everybody here. We all drive through, and we all know what roads were cut when Tall Pines Bridge was torn down. Those of you know, remember that. Everybody knew you couldn't go through South Dogwood because the bridge was down. All the residents knew, but we managed to survive. So we've gone through closures in our life, and if you work it, you can do it on the weekends, whatever, a couple hours, 16 weeks maybe out of 52 in a year. Y'all can figure that out. Again, or do nothing. Why don't, instead of you guys decide, why don't you ask the public, send a resolution, not a resolution, excuse me, you can't do that, a questionnaire out to the public with a self-addressed envelope back to you, stamped, and give each property owner, correctly, a chance to speak. Close the roads, do nothing. Simple binary solution. Get the feedback in, and then you can make your decision. I think that would get the public's input in. This is not the town. This is some interested people who want to say some things. It's great, but this would get everybody a chance to say, open the roads, leave them open, or have a resolution and close it. Okay.
Thank you,
all.
George.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Debbie Newberry.
Uh-oh. I think I lost my notes. Let me see. Just a couple of things I'm Debbie Newberry, 267 North Dogwood Trail. And just a couple of things, we cannot hear you in the back. The only person we can hear is Elizabeth, the mayor.
My voice carries really well,
Yours
Debbie.
does, but you lean into your
And
mic.
I lean into my microphone.
No one else is leaning into their mic, you especially. And it's really hard to hear. And I know you had some great questions that they were answering, because the answers, we could tell what they were talking about. So if everybody could do that, that would really be wonderful. I'd appreciate it. And let me start just with a couple items that I just wanted to point out, or at least have open for discussion later. I think a lot of our homeowners actually live on the canals, and use those waterways. So as we are thinking about what to do and, what we're going to pay for and how we're going to do it, I think it's important to keep that in mind, that I think a lot of property values here are really based on being on water. And if they cannot access the sound, that is an issue. So please just keep that in mind. The other thing is maybe looking at a cost share for people who live on the canals to help open these, the waterways up. Because I think, again, it is really important to a lot of these people, and considering we kind of did this for the ocean and what was there, it only seems fair that as we're doing the canals, we should also keep that in mind. I mean, I don't live on one of the canals. I live on the Sound, and I pay for everything that occurs there. Nobody picks up a bill for me, and that's fine. But I think it's something, I think these are things to keep in mind as we're going forward. It is an important aspect of our town, all of our water, the ocean and the Sound. And then when it comes to the cut-through traffic, I'd really like to hear a lot more about why we can't put the gate in. I know, I've heard a couple of times about, we have to be equal to everyone, but these are private roads, and I guess I'm still a bit confused about that. I know, Paula, you had asked about this before, and I think you probably understand it a lot better now as being, the situation you're in. And it may be really great if we could get a real explanation on this of why we can't put gates in. And I know they're complicated to put a gate in, but I do think that the technology is there to do that and may not be as bad as it was, say, 5 years ago to do something like this. And I think it's easy enough to do things like all the UPS men get a little badge that they can come in to our gates. All the workers that are coming into this area, and sure, maybe they're passing them out, their little tag, but if they're not, that's fine. Or we hand out numbers. Each citizen gets to hand out, they have, their little tags to get in and out. We may have, everybody gets like 4 numbers. Oops. In other words, there's different ways to do this. And, and a number can work only 4 times in a day. So you can't hand it out to 10,000 people. Everybody that belongs to the clubs can get that number. Any guest to the club can get a number that can be used, 3 or 4 times, but over a weekend. But I mean, there's a lot of things I'd like to consider, and I'd really like to understand that a lot more, maybe in some discussions as we go through. And I am glad we're doing this resolution. That to me sounds like something that may help. It's not going to be the solution for this, but I think it will help to a point to stop this traffic. Thank you. Sorry I ran over.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Anyone else got up the courage to want to come and talk to us? Yes, sir. If you'll just tell us your name and where you live, that'd be great after you get to the podium, so we can all hear each other by speaking into the microphone.
Yeah, my name's Ralph Sitterson. I live at 33 East Dogwood. The observation I have about traffic, and something that I would suggest you consider, is a no left-hand turn at Dogwood and 12. And that would be easily enforced. You've got the fire department, EMS property right across the street. You wouldn't have a situation of where you're having to sit and follow somebody to see whether or not they're going to do a cut through. It would be a clear, obvious violation if they made a left-hand turn there. And it could be only during the weekends, just like we have a no right-hand turn up on 12. But I think that it's an opportunity of where the word would get around quickly if people started getting pulled and getting tickets for making a left-hand turn on 12 there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Hall. I live on 237 Wax Myrtle Trail. I call that the middle section of Wax Myrtle. My observations with the traffic, I've lived here about 6 years. and I've heard all of the complaints. My issue on Wax Myrtle specifically, and I feel for everyone. I feel for the people that live above me on Sea Oats and Hillcrest who have bottleneck traffic, and people are getting out of their cars and urinating on lawns. It's completely unacceptable. I've kind of come to the realization that the infrastructure is just not set up for the amount of people that are coming here and trying to get to Corolla and Duck. But for Wax Myrtle, it's the speed that bothers me. People tell me, or I've heard, people have said to me, this is what I signed up for, that I live in a beach community. Well, I can tell you 6 years ago, my realtor did not tell me that there was going to be thousands of people speeding down Wax Myrtle. We've had dogs killed, cats killed, and pretty soon there's going to be children killed. It's where we're going. They have no regard for anything. Zero. People say we need these people. I don't think Southern Shores needs these people. I mean, I'm polite to them and I'm cordial to them. I'm courteous to them. But when they blatantly blow by these roadblocks and come hauling ass down Wax Myrtle at 55 miles an hour, I have a problem with that. I would like you to consider putting some speed bumps in. I mean, I don't see what the problem is with just putting in some speed bumps. Low and slow, you can see them. A year ago, someone was like, well, EMS is not going to be able to get through Wax Myrtle or through the back streets if there's speed bumps. I don't believe that for a second. Put an all hands memo out that we have speed bumps. The EMS are going to figure it out very quickly. I don't see that being a problem. That's my only issue with the traffic. I appreciate all of the efforts that have been made. I know you're working on it. I know you can't please everyone, but I just wish that I appreciate the police force being out there and sitting under the tree, slowing people down, but I wish you would strongly consider just putting in some speed bumps for the safety of our animals, our children, our senior citizens. Can't ride our bikes, can't do anything. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Come on up. Good to see you.
Good evening. I'm Andy McConaughey. I live on Wax Myrtle also. And my inquiry is there a dialogue with the town of Duck and law enforcement in Duck to enhance the speed going through Duck? We've got 25 mile an hour speed limit. Actually, coming down 158, approaching the Outer Banks, people are moving at a race pace, slowed to 25 miles an hour in Duck, and multiple pedestrian crosswalks. The law is to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalks. But as vacationers go through the town of Duck, there's no regulation on the pedestrians themselves. One pedestrian can stop traffic, one car can go back after them, another pedestrian steps to the street, traffic stops again for that one. Is there a dialogue with law enforcement and the town of Duck to control the pedestrian traffic so that the vehicular traffic can move forward? That's my thought. If anything can be done there, I'd appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate
Thank
it,
you.
sir. Anybody else? George, one more time.
Those of us who know, Duck has been a choke point. Everybody knows. So if you want to get on 12 on Saturday, good luck, especially if you're going north. Well, there's an engineering solution, and I recommend the council discuss it with the Duck Council. You have intermittent people, and I agree. Where'd you go? I agree with exactly what you're saying. One person crosses up here, then car goes through, another person crosses on there. So what you do is you have a coordinated street crossings. So all the lights, all the street crossings have little people, and they all come on at once for 2 minutes or a minute or whatever, All the traffic stopped, everybody crosses, traffic goes green again, the whole street moves, not just, bitty here, there. It's a simple engineering solution. And if you are going to close roads, I have some ideas on how to do it without blocking off the traffic into 12. You can go through the school parking lot and at the fire, after the fire station, have a guillotine where you open it and close it, and the fire and the chief can have that, and you can basically, that way all the traffic can go in there and then just be routed right back out through the school parking. Anyway.
Thanks, George. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet would like to speak? I think we're done. I'm going to close public comment. Thank you all. Let's see. We are now going to go into new business. Discussion, of seasonal cut-through traffic mitigation. Council, for your information, we have in our books on page 4, council and staff will discuss, and staff recommends approval of the resolution. So, Cliff, correct me if I'm wrong, the resolution that you have presented to us was actually taken from a resolution that was out in the public before.
It's a cut, a lot of it is a cut and paste.
And approximately when did that occur?
The first resolution?
Yeah.
2014, 15?
Somewhere in there. It's been a while. Okay. Before your time, for
Oh,
sure.
yes. Yes,
as
ma'am.
well as ours. Okay. But the difference, just so everyone understands, is that you and myself and Mayor Pro Tem Matt Neal had a Zoom meeting with 2 gentlemen from Waze. That's WAZE, which is one of the traffic navigation apps that's most popular, which is owned by Google. And it's kind of like talking to the Wizard of Oz. They're the guys behind the curtain. So they're the guys that essentially set the metrics, set up what people get off of their phone. And they were amenable to helping us out. They understand. I think they both have visited here. I think one of them visits here frequently. So they feel our pain, which was really comforting to know. And they have assured us that if we adopt this resolution, we're also going to take down some old signs that are all faded and you can't see the paint on them anymore. And we're going to put up some new signs that say the words that we have in the resolution. And everyone's going to say, well, people are still going to do what they do. Well, people are going to do what they do, but at least now they're not going to see where it's faster to go through our town streets, according to the traffic navigation app. Because that was what has been so frustrating, is that I know it's not faster because I know where the cars are lined up on Hillcrest and 11th and Sea Oats and East Dogwood, and they'll sit for a very long time. And the traffic's not lined up on 12. It doesn't even get to Paula's house. They're still moving in front of Paula's house.
Mhm.
So I think it is different from what we did before. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. It's exactly right.
That's what we're doing. Now, if I may impose on Chief Cole to talk to us about the challenges up here at the podium.
First I'm hearing about traffic.
Can you come up to the podium and talk to us a few minutes about what your interpretation of this resolution, if we pass it, might be?
Yes, thank you. Look, it can't hurt. I'm impressed that you can get a conglomerate like that to actually agree to do something like that. That's huge. Yeah, it's true. The people that have been here before, they know how to get to where they need to get to. 2 things to clarify. They're not private streets. They're public streets. There's a few private streets, but it's not the ones that they're cutting through. So therefore, anybody can traverse on the town of Southern Shore streets. No, we cannot enforce it. We had put some signs up and copied an ordinance that we had back in New York that I had used years ago. And this is way before you guys. That was a 5-ton limit sign. That's enforceable because you can stop the truck that's making the delivery. And as long as they're making a delivery within the town, they can traverse any of the streets. But if you check their bill of lading and it doesn't show that and it says, no, they're cutting through and going to Duck, then we can enforce that. But as far as just regular straight through traffic, that's pretty difficult to do. We'll still be out there. I can tell you that we'll put up our overtime like we do every summer for the weekends and have the officers specifically sitting in strategic locations in the cut through areas and enforcing the speed, enforcing the stop sign violations and so forth and so on.
And Chief, are you currently at full capacity in your department?
You're good. Not even close.
Okay.
We're still down 3. We've been down 2 for a long time. Not the only town that's down. Everybody on the beach is shorthanded right now. But we're holding our own, and we're doing the best we can.
And we did recently add a new individual,
We did.
and he's still with us.
As soon as he gets some nice uniforms, he's wearing some old hand-me-downs right now, we will bring him to a council meeting and introduce him.
Oh, yeah.
And
For
look-
the picture, we got to have the right uniform.
Yeah, and we were fortunate. We got him from Charlotte Mecklenburg. So he came from a pretty good department. Very squared away, 20-year Army. He's actually getting ready to retire from the reserves. He's a good officer. And we've got a couple more that we're going to be interviewing. Pretty soon.
Again, bottom line though, we're not fully staffed.
No,
So,
we're short 3 and
Mhm.
we're about to lose another one for a baby for about 8 of the 12 weeks. He's only taken 8 weeks, so we feel pretty good about that.
okay. Council, anybody have any questions for Chief Cole?
No,
I appreciate-
I have a question for Cliff.
Oh, okay. I appreciate you, Chief.
Thank you.
Cliff.
Cliff, when you talk to waves, and people use the map, will the streets go red on the map? When you guys were on the Zoom, I mean, will they actually show red?
They will not report active traffic.
They will, no active
I'm
traffic?
sorry. When we block it, they don't report active traffic until it goes unblocked. When Waze does this, it'll show the traffic buildup, but it will also not use our streets as a viable route if you're coming inbound through town
At all?
at all.
Okay.
That's what we were told.
But if we could get red on there too, it would,
It will still show red, correct? Isn't that what they said?
Oh,
And that's
oh,
the benefit of this method.
yeah.
On 158 and 12.
But I thought it was still active reporting on our street. Or is it just completely isolated from the system?
It could show all green on 12.
Now, I see the point. I see what the question.
Why not? I mean, why
Yeah,
not? If they
but
can,
what it
if
is
you
it
can
will
talk
not
to them.
Pick any of our roads that we've classified as local, no through traffic roads during this time period. It will not choose them as a route unless the destination is within this zone.
Within the
From
zone,
what
okay.
I understood is it will still show active monitoring, so traffic builds and shows red. I could be incorrect on that, but that's what.
I'll
that's
get
what
that
my
clarified.
understanding was. Because
Yeah,
right
I
now,
mean-
when we put our blocks on, it just erases the streets from all of Wade's active monitoring, and then eventually the algorithm says, wait, there's 8,000 cars up there.
Right.
And it shows and it starts routing people through. So when they do it on the back end, that's what this is. This isn't necessarily for police enforcement or on the ground enforcement. It's for the software. It's to give them the permission to remove our roads as a viable route. So again, there's a lot of people who've already driven those roads and know those routes, but there's a lot of people that come through. They're still turning on East Dogwood, my street. They'll turn on in Hickory and get stuck up there still because the Waze is saying it's 4 minutes faster. So.
Okay.
It's all about shortening their route, shortening the time they have to be in the car in order to get to where they want to go. I would like to point something out at this point in our discussion, if you'll indulge me. This is from our land use plan update consulting firm and some facts for seasonal population projections. And what this basically says is that our year-round population is about 3,000 folks, just a little over 3,000. But peak visitor population just to the town of Southern Shores is just about 6,500 folk. So when you add it up, you get to between 9,500 and 10,000 people in the town of Southern Shores. So that's a threefold at least increase from what we get used to in January, February, March, April. So it is a significant uptick just within the footprint of our town. Just thought I'd share that with you.
That didn't measure pass-through, though. Yeah, it didn't measure pass-through traffic. Those are just people who
That's
stay
just
with us.
people who are
Yeah,
staying within the
that's what the
town.
land-
That's what
that's
this
who stays in the town,
estimates,
yeah.
is the
Not
number
the-
of folks that are staying within the
Nothing,
town.
no.
And this will be, Cliff, this will be available when we get our land use plan update finalized. This will be like an appendix or something.
It's on there now.
And it's on the website right now. And, but eventually, when we get it all buttoned up and finished and ready to go, it'll be a part of the land use plan update as an appendix or something.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. It's got some really interesting numbers in there. Let's see. Sorry, no, Mark. There'll be public comment, another public comment opportunity. And also, we're always available by phone or email. Council, we have been asked by staff to approve this resolution. Do you want to go ahead and do that?
One clarification. If
Yes.
the, last page, second paragraph, it says Memorial Day and Labor Day. It should say Memorial Day.
The new version has it.
Okay.
It's a new version.
Okay, so it says,
Memorial Day through Labor Day.
yes, so no through traffic at the intersections of all town streets and NC 158, NC 12 from the Friday before Memorial Day through Labor Day. That's what this resolution says. And again, the purpose of it is to affect navigation traffic applications. So I'll take a motion now for adopting this resolution.
So moved.
And a
So-
and a second.
Second.
Any other comment about, discussion about the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution is approved. Thank you, staff and others for making that happen. Now, you also want us to know, you want to ask us, what else do you want us to talk about, Cliff? Specifically?
What, if any, measures you want to see staff implement this year? In the past, you've given us direction on putting up the barricades and things like that. So I'm, based on all the experience that we've had now, you know what works, you know what doesn't work. You've heard it all. So, I don't know that we necessarily have to get that from you tonight, but we're just wanting to know what direction we're going to go this summer.
Okay, thanks, appreciate that. Matt?
The level of animosity that the barricades created, both through people on the ground. Am I speaking in the microphone? Debbie, can you hear me? The level of animosity that came from the barricades was unsettling. I was on the ground on my bike quite a bit through last summer, and it was not pleasant at a lot of those intersections. So I think our efforts to physically control the traffic on that level, both was ineffective and might have even done more harm in some cases. But the two things that Mr. Hall was suggesting was speed bumps on Wack Myrtle. I don't know if temporary speed bumps is an option. I would be willing to consider that because I've witnessed that. Often the backup, it's so slow you don't need them, but there are some of those streets where you can hear the engines revving. And then we've talked about this off and on, some signage that says it will take forever to get to Corolla if you go through our town. Whether it's at the Moyoc big thing, just like the Hampton Road. We've said this a million times, we've asked about it. I don't know if that's some other mechanism we can start kicking down the road. Information at this point, more than physical barricades.
I agree with you, man. I mean, I was on the bike on Saturday and Sunday last year on my bike, going to the intersections, and I mean, watch people drive in the grass, drive around those barricades, yell at each other, no turnarounds. God, the one at Hickory was a disaster one day. And it went on all summer, and I like that. I mean, we have the portable signs, and I don't know if we can just say, you can't cut through, period, stay on 12. I mean, to be so direct, welcome, don't cut through. stay on 12. I mean, and I know people will ignore it and, but just help them to go that way. But the barricades were just moving them around. I mean, even on Juniper, you know, down where I live, past on Juniper, folks were driving so fast around that they didn't even think about it twice. So I wouldn't be in favor of doing barricades this year at all.
Can you hear me, Debbie? You know, if I thought the barricades worked, I'd be all in favor of them. It didn't appear to me that they worked. And they create, I think, a real eyesore in this community. It just, you know, Southern Shores is such a pretty town. We have so much to offer, and we have those orange barricades all over everywhere. And I just really hated it. So if they don't work in an overwhelming kind of way, I would not support doing those again. Speed bumps, I've had a lot of people talk to me about speed bumps. I don't know a lot about speed bumps. I certainly would want them to be temporary. But if we're down officers, you know, and our officers have to do a lot more than control traffic on Saturdays. If a speed bump will help a particular neighborhood and there's no overwhelming reason not to do it for some public safety issue, I think we need to look at those.
Yeah, I'm just gonna echo. I think as much as I was walking around and looking at what was going on at intersections where we had barricades up, I'm very, very concerned that the opportunity for conflict between drivers, between drivers and town residents, between town residents and their neighbors. I just think that the potential for conflict far outweighs their efficacy. I think they're a safety hazard. I saw people tear around those half blocks without even paying any attention to whether there was a car on the other side or not. I think it's a miracle we don't have more head-ons. I know people are frustrated. I had someone text me last summer. She was trying to get home from work. She worked in Duck. She was coming down South Dogwood, and someone was in her lane because they were tired of sitting in their traffic lane, and they had gone into the other lane, and she almost got into a head-on collision. And she was so upset, she texted me and told me all about it. And I feel horrible that these kinds of things take place. Mark lives on an intersection and people just drive right across his lawn, just like it's a cut through. Not to belabor that term. Town of Duck. I have spoken personally to the leadership of the town of Duck. Chief Cole and I, the town managers, their police chief, we all sat down and talked through everything about the traffic. There is no support in the town of Duck to change anything about their pedestrian crosswalks on NC 12. They don't want to, that's just not something they're going to be willing to do. I have met with property management company ownership. I have met with the realtor board. I've met with I've spoken to the tourism board. So again, and the previous mayor also spoke to the town of Duck. So this is nothing new. And, you know, I just feel like we have done what we could. We're going to hope that bridge gets built one day in Currituck, and it will relieve some of the pressure. But I really do want y'all to think about the fact that, you know, our population just in the town of Duck triples during the season. Just think about that. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of extra folks. So I'm not going to support barricades this year. I just don't believe that that's something that we need to be doing. Speed humps. I'd be willing to try it, maybe. I'd have to get some more information.
Yeah, cost.
Cost, how do we do it?
Employment.
Do we do it temporary? Are they something you can put down and take up? Is that something that you can do Would you do it for the whole summer and leave them all out there and then take them up at the end of the summer? You know, how would we do it? I don't know the answer to those questions. So I guess that's a conversation. So I guess that's a
That's the
direction,
task for the
a
mayor.
direction to staff would be, let's have some information about doing that. I also wouldn't mind some input from the people who live on Wax Myrtle. Figure out a way we can maybe send them a letter,
Yeah.
get some information back.
It's just not Wax Myrtle that they're speeding on either.
Okay, maybe we can figure out the other places
I've
that
seen
are.
them speed on CO. It's like crazy.
CO, it's like crazy?
Yeah,
Okay.
they, yeah, I mean, just,
So we'll start that conversation
Yeah,
about
that-
where, how, cost, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Does that pretty much cover that item? Okay. Moving on. We do have another general public comment period, but we're going to get through our new business first, guys. Consideration of planning board appointment. We are on page 9, council, in your books. Did someone from staff want to talk to us, or do you want us to just handle this? Oh, good. Wes, thank you.
Good evening again, Mayor, members of council. When you all appointed Jan Collins as a regular member on the planning board February 7th of this year, that created a vacant alternate position on the board. And we have received 2 applications from residents that are interested in serving. And we recommend appointment of one or the other as an alternate member on the board with a term that begins immediately and ends on June 30, 2024.
Thanks, sir. And I will say that we did take the opportunity to meet with both of these applicants, Cliff, Wes, the chairman of the planning board, Andy Ward, and myself. Just invited the folks, both of these gentlemen, for a brief conversation, just to get to know them a little bit. Bottom line is, these 2 folks are just incredibly talented and smart and accomplished, and either one of them would be an excellent member of our planning board as an alternate. I wish we could appoint both of them. Council, this is really a tough one. Does anyone have any thoughts they'd like to share?
I'll just go first. Want to make
Okay.
sure everybody can hear. That's the first time I've been said I can't be heard. I've spoken to 1,000 people and they said, I'll hear without a microphone. My voice, I'm sorry. I don't like microphones. Anyway, when I read the resumes of both of these candidates, I went, holy cow, these folks reside in our community. I mean, how lucky can we be to have, qualified people like they are? And they are. I think it's really, really, I think both of them are eminently qualified. I do like the fact that one of them does have a lot of experience in the area of planning. That does, and it's not to say the other person doesn't have that experience, but the experience this one gentleman has in the planning, I think could definitely help us, especially as we start to navigate some of the things that coming down from the state, it looks like, and we try to do what's right for the community. So I would, if you were putting it up for today, I would go with Mr. Zerner. Just my opinion.
Okay. Matt, any thoughts?
I'd be happy with both of them.
Yeah.
They're both qualified. I was kind of sort of leaning the way Mark said, if one has an edge in what the planning board needs at this moment, that would be an understanding of the way zoning is written for local governments. I would appoint both of them. We've got another vacancy coming up in a month, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd be happy with either.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tip the scale.
Yeah. Well-
Appreciate Mark going out there like that.
Well, I mean,
Paula?
got to
do
make
you
a
wanna-
decision.
Well, just about the time, I think nothing else about Southern Shores could surprise me. I read another resume from a Southern Shores resident, and I'm shocked again. Last week, I opened the Washington Post, and one of our residents was, there was a photograph of him in charge of the Situation Room in the White House the night that bin Laden was taken. I mean, and he just lives right here amongst us. So these are both outstanding people, and I am so appreciative that they filed these applications. I guess I tend to think the person with more experience in planning, because we are facing things coming down from the state that we're not sure exactly how to grapple with and what they're going to mean. So I guess I would lean toward Mr. Zenner.
This is, like I said, this is really tough. I would like to appoint one of them as the second alternate and then the other one as the second alternate 2A, if there was such a thing. But I do think,
You can do it.
It's nice to have two applicants.
yeah, it's just really good. So I think what I'm hearing by consensus is Mr. Zahner is going to get the appointment, although Mr. Reese is just outstanding. And perhaps we can talk to him and tell him as soon as we can, we'll get him involved in the planning board. So I think we have our appointment. Okay?
Do you
Do
need a
you
motion?
need a motion?
Need a
Oh,
motion?
here we go. Motion? I'll make a motion that we appoint Mr. Zahner to the second alternate position. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, sorry. Consideration of Historic Landmarks Commission appointment. Council, it's on page 18. That's right. In your book. We had one applicant, a Miss Wanda Brett Jordan, and we did take the opportunity to meet with her, Wes and Cliff and myself, and the chair of the Landmarks Commission, Lee Whitley. Met with Wanda, got to know her a little bit, and she's interested in becoming involved, and this is her first try at getting involved with anything related to the town. And I'm just so
Wonderful.
grateful that she has put her name forward. And I would like to make a motion that we appoint Wanda Brett Jordan to the alternate position on our Historic Landmarks Commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Now, it's a little after 7, and we need to talk about a budget, but I think I would like to take a 5-minute recess, if that's okay with everyone, and we'll come back and start with the budget discussion. Thank you. We'll be back in 5 minutes.
Where's,
We're back in session. Thank you for that short break. Now we're on to discussing about the town's budget. Cliff, you're taking the lead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Presented for your consideration is the town manager's recommended budget for fiscal year July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, which has been prepared in accordance with the North Carolina Local Government Fiscal Control Act as required by North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 159-11. This budget is a result of a great deal of hard work from all staff, particularly Finance Officer Bonnie Swain. Inflation continues to impact the town's budget and personnel. Rising rapidly during 2021, the Consumer Price Index 12-month percentage change recently peaked at 9.1% in June of 22. While this index has since fallen to 6% as of February 2023, this is still significantly higher than the Federal Reserve's target of 2.0%. Tourism continues to be very strong. Dare County Tourism Bureau reported a 33.78% increase in gross occupancy collected for the 21 calendar year. Growth continued in 2022 with an increase of 5.60%. Thus far in 2023, the months of January and February show a less than 1% increase, which could signal a leveling out. The town continues to realize strong revenues for both sales and occupancy taxes. The pre-COVID budget 2019-20 saw sales and occupancy revenue at $948,993 and $1,001,880 respectively. The town is expected to receive approximately $1,750,000 in sales and $1.8 million in occupancy for the current fiscal year, and we're budgeting just under 1.7 and just over 1.8 for fiscal year 23-24. The town did not experience the leveling out of revenues as we thought we might, except for land transfer. Although increases are expected in sales and occupancy taxes the next fiscal year, a further drop in land transfer tax is anticipated. This year's general fund budget totals $9,731,450, an increase of $940,674 or 10% from what was adopted. The adopted budget has since been amended and is now at $10,937,428. Last year's budget noted while a tax increase for general fund expenditures is not recommended at this time, a tax increase will likely be part of the 23-24 budget. The same can be said moving forward. The tax rate had not increased for over 9 consecutive years until 21-22 when taxes were raised 4 cents townwide to pay for the beach nourishment project. Over those years, the town experienced a decline in shared revenues consequently. With the increase of 4 cents, the impact of shared revenues was an increase of 2.17%. Last year, a tax increase of 2.2 cents would have balanced the budget. 1 cent in ad valorem tax generates $167,039. This year's revenues will match expenditures, marking the first year since 2021 that an appropriation from fund balance was not necessary. Therefore, a tax increase is not recommended at this time. The budget recommends no change in the tax rates already established for the beach nourishment debt service. In 2021, the council approved a 10-year street improvement plan generated by an engineering firm. Recommended budget includes $1 million for funding that plan. The sidewalk on the east side of NC-12 from Triangle Park up the East Dogwood Trail is budgeted at $328,416, which includes a $150,000 grant from the Tourist Bureau. The project is expected to go to bid in September. In fiscal year 20, this planned budget year, fiscal year 23-24, marks the third year of debt service payments for the 22-23 beach nourishment project, budgeted at $11,325,189. Merit funds are budgeted for personnel. Merit funds are budgeted at $114,113. Merit increases are budgeted at a maximum of 5%, depending on individual performance evaluations. COLA is recommended at 6.5% for employees at a cost of $122,000. Mandatory town contributions to the state retirement system are anticipated to increase from 12.13% to 12.88% for general fund employees, while increasing 13.04% to 14.10% for law enforcement. Our small groups medical insurance renewal rates are based on statewide claims for the year of all small groups. The town will see an approximate 5% increase to the medical premiums for employees. The town provides a cafeteria plan to offset the cost of dependent health care of $675. A 3.7% increase is recommended, equaling $25. The town has spent considerable efforts on attracting and retaining new employees. In an effort to incentivize long-tenured employees, retiree health benefits are recommended for revision by removing the cap placed on retiree premium reimbursement. Retiree premiums are recommended to be reimbursed in full, providing the benefits are equal to or less than active employees. In recognition of long-tenured employees who have made a commitment to the town, an increase in longevity pay is recommended. Presently, longevity is paid $500 increments, 5 to 9 years, 10 to 14, 15 to 19, and 20 to 24, beginning at $500, 25 or more at $2,500. So that's recommended to go from $1,000 to $5,000 for employees at 25 or more years. If on the screen, point to a couple of slides. The first being ad valorem taxes versus shared revenue taxes. You'll see these are our two big pots of revenue. You'll see that the ad valorem taxes have remained steady. That increase in 21-22 was because of the beach nourishment increased that. We're anticipating the county is going to go through a reevaluation process in FY25. So not this year, but next year. And then, of course, we'll provide the revenue neutral rate at that time. The graph on the right, you'll see the blue is the occupancy, orange is sales tax, and gray is land transfer. The land transfer we're showing is going to decline, while occupancy and sales tax will continue to rise. Next one. This shows the difference in expenditures for each department, for each line item. You can see that differences between what's requested in the actual 2021 budget with a percent change increase. And it's important to note that some of these numbers may look large. Reason being, for example, if there's $1 million in this year's budget in Public Works for street improvements, and that money gets carried over into the next fiscal year, then that's going to be a big increase for that department. But you'll see the difference between what's requested this year versus what was actually budgeted. Requested to the present year amended. There's an actual decrease. Next one. This shows the total operating general fund expenditures. That jump of 21, again, that jump illustrates what I just said. In 21-22, there was $1 million budgeted, or there was an amount of money budgeted to be spent in that year that got carried over into the next budget. That's why you see such a big jump. And then this shows the expenditures by department with a steady increase for each of the departments. You can see that the growth and the increase. And then finally, that's by department. The next one will show by contracted services. The blue is our sanitation, the orange is fire, and the gray is ocean rescue. I can tell you that the increase in sanitation has remained steady. It's contract calls. It allows for a CPI adjustment, which has been averaging about their request has been averaging about 5% each year. And then finally, this marks the first year of the town endeavoring on a 2-year budget, the second year being a plan year. By encouraging staff to think strategically over multiple years instead of simply balancing the budget for a single year, will better position the town in the future. The town staff were directed to budget for the next fiscal year, which, barring any unforeseen or mandated changes, will provide a strong basis to start FY 24-25. Then 25-26 will then become the next plan year. Because the town can only adopt the budget annually, the plan year will have no binding impact. The recommended budget will be posted on the town's website tomorrow and be available for inspection at Town Hall by contacting the town clerk. Ask that you schedule the public hearing to receive citizen comment and feedback on the recommended budget. Schedule it for June 6th at 5:30. And I just really want to extend my sincere appreciation to town staff and to the council for providing us a great place to work. And staff is here. They're prepared to answer any of the questions that you may have now, or if welcome the opportunity to meet with you, to discuss with you at any time between now and June 6th about your questions. We can sit down and go line by line if you so choose. But at this point, got any questions, we're here to answer them.
Thanks, Cliff.
Cliff, I have a question on page 8. I want to make sure I understand that. The amended budget for 22-23 was 10,000,008, and requested for 23-24 is 9.6 million?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so if you
So
look,
we're actually down 10%, but there's a big item, right? There's one big item that makes that work?
It's two capital improvements.
It's capital improvements, that's what I thought.
And then
Okay.
The transfer that got from reserve, and then also the carryover from the
Yeah,
street project.
all right.
previous year.
if you looked at the, shoot, sorry, I'm flipping. If you look at page 2, no, page 1. Where that amended budget is 10 million, you'll see
Yeah.
the 2.2 million of appropriated undesignated fund balance. That's the carryover. $1 million of that was for the streets that we didn't do last year that we carried over.
Yeah.
400,000 of that's for the house. 185,000 of that was for Kimley Horn to do the Juniper work. And the rest of it's, all the budget amendments that you have approved get carried over, and that's why. So when we're comparing, it's almost better to compare the requested to what was, to an actual budget, because you get a better idea.
So what you've presented here has no tax increase
Correct.
and no need to borrow,
Correct.
no need to balance the budget
No,
from,
yeah, there's no use of fund balance to balance.
no
the
need to
budget.
balance the budget from the general
From fund
Right,
balance.
from the fund balance.
And one thing I'll point out, and as a reminder, is we haven't budgeted for the culvert, the Juniper Trinity culvert replacement. One thing I forgot to share with you tonight, and I'll put it on the town's website, we got a Gantt chart. We're getting, at this point, we're getting monthly updates that we can share with the public that explains what Kimley Horn has done. That Gantt chart shows us in June of 24 being ready to go out to bid is the expected timeline. And that's what I think, that's pushing it. They don't want to be, they want to miss it, so they've pushed it out. But so we could be looking at budgeting some pretty big amount of fund balance for that purpose. But to answer your question,
Okay.
no use of fund balance this year.
And this budget's a full police department?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you budgeted as if we get the 3 positions
Yes.
filled? Okay.
Right.
Was there anything staff asked that you guys decided to leave out? That's $1 million question for the staff. They wouldn't dare do, I'm sorry, that was unfair to ask that.
No, I used to report what departments requested
Yeah.
versus what's recommended,
Yeah.
but I stopped doing that.
That's good. Okay.
So I really like the fact that we've, gone to sort of a 2-year plan. I think we all like that. We've also talked about budget over the last 12 months more often than we did the previous 12 months, which I like that too, because the whole issue about the Bonnie's explanation of why we needed to increase health benefits, retention and recruitment, all that stuff. It's not the first time we've seen it, because we saw it several months ago. It's like, this is coming. We're going to be doing this. And that always makes it easier as an elected official. Couple of things I'm just going to throw out there for people to think about is, would be how many years of no tax increases except for beach nourishment? Is it 10?
Was it 2014 was the last time? So we think FY14 would have been, so it's been 10 budget years.
Okay. Which we're very fortunate to have been able to do that. I do think it really helped us. How do I say this? No one likes to have to pay more taxes, but we got a really good beach nourishment project out of it. And on the other hand, we got a bigger piece of the pie from Dare County, which has helped our numbers this year pretty substantially.
Almost as much as the townwide tax increase.
Yeah, almost as much as the townwide tax increase. And then the other thing that's been out there that we haven't, that no one expected is our interest income. Our interest income has been, yeah, just insane. Again, all good news. So having built that up, the thing I think, if we're going to talk about spending money in other places, I think walking paths are the most popular thing that we spend money on, other than fixing streets. So if we were going to raise taxes at some time in the future, perhaps we could do that in the name of more walking paths. That's one thing to think about. I'm just saying as a topic of a discussion. The second thing I want to throw out there is we have a wonderful volunteer fire department. Thank you, Chief Limbacher. I thank you all every day for everything that you do. But at some point, there's a sincere possibility, reality, that we will not have a volunteer fire department. And should we, just like we increased our money that we put towards canals, should we think about a tax increase that could support the potential for the volunteer fire department no longer being a volunteer fire department? And again, I'm not expecting us to do anything. I'm just throwing it out there for us to think about in terms of long-term, just like we did the $400,000 property purchase of the adjoining property with the cool flat top on it, because that was the right thing to do for the long-term future of our town. These things I think about, and I think it's worthwhile. You can't really justify a tax increase when you have all these other revenues that continue to come in, but you can if you think about where they ought to go specifically, and you explain to people that live here, this is what we're planning for, is the day that the volunteer fire department is no longer a volunteer fire department.
The other part to that is at some point, our fund balance alone can't continue to do our capital improvement. So we need to continue to fund that with future, so if we raise the tax rate a little bit and keep contributing to capital reserve fund, or keep letting it sit in undesignated fund. I think did you have any, the budget looks fine. Everything's balanced. We actually have a little bit of excess. If some of these line items aren't spent in this fiscal year, do you have some earmark that might not be spent, or what would we direct that toward? You said walking paths. I was thinking future payment for the Trinity culvert, which is what we briefly discussed earlier. That's the only comment I got.
And Bonnie will have to correct me if I'm wrong, but if there's a surplus, we could take that equivalent and put it in the capital reserve fund, the transfer fund balance to capital reserve for future capital projects.
And it doesn't have to. It could stay as undesignated fund. It's just I'm thinking if the savings this year, we're going to get hit with $1 million bill for that culvert. and we're moving down the path to do it. So,
Get hit for what? I didn't hear
$1
you.
million
$1 million bill
for
for that
the
culvert.
Juniper.
I mean, I'm
Trinity,
speculating,
okay.
maybe it's
Trinity,
less, but
sorry.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
emotionally I'm preparing.
At least you're emotionally prepared for that.
It's,
Mayor, to your point, I think if you wanted to earmark money to recognize, just like your policy is for, I think it's $3.5 million set aside of fund balance you cannot touch. It's storm only. The same, you could create a same policy that X amount of fund balance is set aside in recognition of the need for a future.
annual
Fire
walking
department.
path endowment or something.
Yeah.
So, I think
Yeah,
they're both valuable. I mean, they're both infrastructure. They're both big ticket things that we need to do as a town for.
Well, I guess I'll just speak up for the people who live in MS1. We got a big tax hike last year, and I'm hearing that property values are going to be reassessed, and looking at the price tags on some of the property here in Southern Shores, some of us may get hit again. So I just be sensitive to the fact that, when you say there's not been a tax increase for 10 years or so, some of us have had a pretty substantial one. I'm all for it. I think it was fairly done. I don't have any problem with it.
No.
But
if the valuations are higher and we do take into account as our ad valorem, we will publish like a negative tax, meaning
Neutral
the
rate.
the cents will stay the same or reduce potentially, but the revenue stays the same.
Right.
Revenue neutral. That's the phrase.
Right, and I think as the mayor said and Matt, if you're going to raise taxes, you need a reason to do it. I mean, we've got to have some kind of plan, not just, well, we haven't raised taxes for a while, so we need to raise taxes.
Right.
I think we have, and we're doing the land use plan right now, so that may segue into.
I was
some ideas.
concerned last year, we balanced our budget with undesignated fund for 2 years. I was concerned this year would be the year we'd have to. Our interest income skyrocketed and our shared occupancy tax was significant enough to offset the amounts that we were budgeted. Plus, those were paper balancing. We didn't actually typically spend them. So, I mean, we're fortunate again to be in this position to have a balanced budget without a tax increase. I appreciate the 2-year map out shows, the direction we're headed with some of these things.
Any staff want to make a comment? Chief, you've got your hand up.
I did just want to say a couple things.
Yeah, can you come up here so we can get it on the recording? Thank you. Sorry.
I did just want to make a quick comment on the fire department, and I've spoken to all the councils and each one of you individually, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and I wholeheartedly agree with you that I think it's easier for people to swallow to say, listen, this could be coming. We don't want it to be a slap in the face, but just so you understand, I think that we are extremely fortunate that we still have a volunteer force. I honestly can't believe it. I mean, I'm so happy about it, but I agree with you that we definitely should prepare people that it might happen tomorrow, might happen in 10 years. I don't know, but just so they don't get hit in the face like, oh my God, you never told me this. So if I could sway anybody's opinion on how things are going, I think they are going well now, but with the housing and just all the forces working against us, I just really can't believe that we're still a volunteer system. I hope it continues because I like the system. I think it works well, but I think getting in front of it, being the train, being the engine instead of the caboose is definitely the way to go. So just my 2 cents on it.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Appreciate your thoughts.
The major cost difference for that transition would be salaries, correct?
Absolutely.
Salaries
You'd
and
be
benefits.
able to-
You
not
would
any-
still have the operating costs that we currently have. That's
Right.
not going to change because we still have to, heat building and run the trucks and things like that. But it would be an additional, I've spoken with Bonnie and Cliff at length about it. You're talking about a significant amount of money.
Yeah. I'm just glancing.
Yeah, you're at least $1 million.
That's what I was thinking.
So, like I said, I hope it doesn't happen. We try as hard as we can, but I've been in Cliff's office, and anytime I've been in the past manager's office, anytime I get a little nervous, like we're not gonna be able to do something, the pendulum always seems to swing back the other way, and we work our way out of it. So, like I said, right now things are going well, but I would not leave you to the point where like, hey, we can't answer calls. I'll be in his office long before that happens. So just so you are all confident, I wouldn't let that happen. I worry enough as it is now, so.
As a back burner project, if you set out like just a staff roster and what kind of the salary portrait would be, that would be, I mean, we don't have to look at it anytime soon, but.
I mean, I did talk to Bonnie just briefly about uniforms and things like that, things that would be included in each employee's prospective salary.
Mhm.
But the thing would really weigh heavy on us would be the housing. And it's
Yeah.
the same thing that everybody deals with. I mean, I have all these young guys that are all in the careers on the beach that all want to come work for me. But they're not going to come work for $20,000. They're going to come for equal or more than they're making somewhere else. And I don't want to poach as much as I don't. I love all my young guys and I know what they are because I made them. I helped make them. So I would want those guys if it was up to me. But hopefully, again, I don't want that to happen, but I totally agree. We need to be the engine, not the caboose here.
Thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I just have a couple of clarifications, just so I understand. On page 5, just the things I wasn't aware of, right or wrong. I mean, the town spent considerable efforts attracting and training employees and never incentivize long-tenured employees. Explain that paragraph to me. I just didn't quite understand. Removing the cap, I don't know what that means. Just help me there.
I'll probably get Bonnie to explain. This is the retiree.
I don't know what that is. Yeah,
She can explain
just trying to understand the total. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cafeteria plan, what that is, the town, to make sure that we treat all the employees fairly, from our single employee that doesn't have a family to someone that has a family. What a lot of the other municipalities do here in Dare County and across the state, as a matter of fact, this has been on the listserv this week. They pay a percentage of dependent care. What the town of Southern Shores has done since I have been here, and I think it was adopted in 1992, a cafeteria plan. What we do is, instead of paying for, say, Sheila and I have family, but I have a young officer here who is single, that means that Sheila and I would be getting a benefit that this single officer or employee would not be getting. So what we do is we give each employee an additional $675 per month currently, in addition to the salary. That is in a true cafeteria plan, which means it can be used to help offset the cost of purchase independent coverage, which I have several employees that do that. If they do not need to do that, they can also put it in 401k, 457, or they can take it as cash. Of course, if they take it as cash, it's taxed. We pay retirement on it and that sort of thing. But that is a huge, I think the chief can, that's a huge recruiting tool for us.
Yeah, you lose that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm just trying to understand
Yeah,
it.
so that
I know what a cafeteria
so that
plan
is that's where we that sets us apart from the other towns.
So the retirees get the same thing?
No, the retirees do not. The retirees do not get the cafeteria plan.
You're removing the cap on retiree premium and reimbursement.
Okay, what that is, and in the retiree policy for insurance that we have, it currently states that we will not pay more for a retiree than we do an active employee. We're removing that because we have retirees that have been retired for 8 years, and we are currently on a age-banded policy with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, because A, it's cheaper for the town, and B, it's cheaper for my employees that have to purchase it for their dependents. But just say, for instance, our most senior employee retires, and we're paying, say, $1,300 for their premiums each month. The retiree, if when they retire, that means we won't pay any more than $1,300. And so the next oldest employee, if we're paying $1,000 for them, and this employee that's retired has a $1,400 or $1,500 premium, then we're not going to pay more than $1,000. So this is something that we're trying to do to, we're not going to pay for a richer plan. For instance, we have a $2,000 deductible. we're not going to pay for them to have a $500 deductible and a much richer plan than what we have now, and that's what the policy states. So it has to be an equal or lesser plan than what we have for active employees.
Before they go on Medicare.
That's correct.
Okay, all right, got it. And I didn't know, the retention bonus is paid annually?
Yes, sir. On the anniversary, yes, sir.
Okay. It's paid annually.
And that's usually done in a separate check. So that's, but yes, on the work anniversary.
So one last question, the 6.5% for COLA that's put in the budget,
Yes,
what if it comes in and they do that July 1st is when that number is?
that is correct. So
What if it
it'll,
comes in at 5.2?
well, we go with what the CPI number is in like January. That's what we go with. And we have also polled the other towns. The other towns are all doing 6.5%.
That was my next question. You were ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. We've
So
already.
you're
been
using
doing that.
January 1 number and not what the CPI is, what Social Security is based on?
Right. With Social Security, I think is 8.7.
Yeah, it was,
Mhm.
but the number is figured at July
Right.
1.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Correct.
for the following.
Right.
For the following calendar year. is the way it
Yes,
works. Okay,
that's correct.
All
Yes, sir.
okay.
And I just looked at, and I don't know how much attention, you paid, to the graph that I send each month. Currently, and you'll notice that when I send you, because in April, I went ahead and physically transferred the ARP money, the American Rescue Plan money, from the Special Revenue Fund to the General Fund. That was not, we did not budget to spend that because that is replacing police salaries. If you remember, we chose the revenue replacement for that. So we are going to be probably, if I had to predict right now, anywhere between $750,000 to $1 million revenue over expenses, and 475,000 of that is from ARP money. So just, I wanted the council to keep that in their mind.
I
Any-
think you guys did a super job the way you
Thank you.
presented this.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
so,
you. Thank you.
Hopefully the public will feel the same once they see the digital version.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, that's all I have.
All
Thanks,
right.
Bonnie.
Yes.
Appreciate it so
Thank
much. Any other questions, council? Cliff, do you have anything else for us?
What about the cart rollback service? I know
Oh,
that's a
it-
small issue.
It's not in here.
It's not in here.
Well, I see that.
I, it's one of those things that I don't have a strong sense of what it did or didn't do. Whether or not it made an improvement or it didn't. It's $2,300 a month for 4 months. I didn't get any complaints. I think it helped, but I'm not sure that we got $8,000 out of it. So it's not in there, and I just wanted you all to weigh in on that. Because I guess it's a service. It's not something the town has to provide.
Right.
So it's a kind of a third level government expenditure that I had left out.
Did it cut down on the number of complaints we got about trash?
As far as rollback goes, obviously, yeah, in that area that makes a difference, but ordinance still says should instead of shall.
You collect all your citations that you sent out on it?
Have you collected on all the citations? You got compliance on the warning.
No, we complied on a warning. Oh, I'm sorry, before it was a cite, that's right. Okay. It was a warning first. All right.
Well, I'll just throw in, there was a reason we did it, and that's because Ocean Boulevard looked like a trash pile for, a big part of the week. So,
What were your thoughts? Do you think it was an effective thing? Do you think it was effective?
I thought the street looked better. Now, whether it's worth that, I don't know. I mean, I've already had people call me this year about the trash cans over here right across the street. And because they're not ever timely put away. I don't know.
I think having recycle on Friday helped. our recycle
Yes.
day was moved, and I think, and the education to get people to get their recycle out, and then also the Friday pickup on trash, I think that helped a little bit. I know sometimes when I drove down there after waited till traffic subsided, it did look prettier. I will say that. There weren't as many cans out. The other thing is you didn't see was the overflowing stuff on Saturday.
Right.
I mean, that's where you got
Well, and I think our ordinance changing
Tons
the
of
number of
stuff.
required bins really helped with that. I mean, I
Yeah.
think that some of the actions that we took last year have shown a positive outcome, which is nice.
Right.
But yes, there's always going to be the people that won't roll their bin back. I mean, it's just, you're always going to have that. So,
I didn't pay enough attention.
I will be paying more attention this year.
You didn't pay attention?
I didn't pay enough attention. I didn't tell the difference.
There was,
Did they roll
there was a,
No, they don't.
There was
want
a
mine
difference.
back. I'm not in the privilege zone.
there was a difference. I think the people passing through they just wanted to get through.
Yeah.
If it is something you want to do, we can do that now. We don't have to wait until.
Yeah.
We got some money in the budget.
We have
right
money in the
now.
budget to do it. We can, yeah, it wouldn't have to be a next year budget decision. We could go ahead and.
It's a
take care
paint
of
your
it now.
town kind of thing.
It is a paint your town
I'd
kind
be
of thing.
persuaded either way, but I
Right.
didn't honestly notice the difference. But it's probably my fault and not the actual.
I mean, it's not like they rolled them back to your house and tucked them away neatly, but they got them off the road.
Right. They just put them back
So-
20 feet or so full.
It's really managing the rental properties too.
Yeah.
Homeowners that live there diligently probably do handle it.
Right.
It's ultimately the responsibility of the property owner, correct?
Correct.
And is it worth sending a letter from the town to property owners, reminding them about their responsibility as it pertains to the management of their recycle and trash bins? Have we ever done that?
Yeah, but remember, it's, you should.
Okay.
So we're reminding them of what they
Should
should
do.
do.
Is it worth doing that?
Well, I think if the approach is aesthetics, it makes us look better. Please encourage your property manager.
Public
to
health
help
and
us out.
safety?
Yeah, maybe include a picture or two of what it.
What
looks
your
like.
house looks like.
That's
when
the
you're not
discussion we
here.
had last year is like, do we compel them to it or we just pay $8,000 and do it for them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We're not
gonna-
so much of it is rental.
yeah.
I can tell you pretty assuredly, we're not going to compel the property managers to roll the carts back.
Do we have any information from last year about, it's not everyone who is misbehaving. Do we have a clear, any idea about the ones that aren't doing what they should be doing? Do you think? We could just, but you can't even zone it down even further than that? Okay. All right.
We're talking about trash again. aren't
Yeah, we love talking about
We love
trash.
talking about trash.
It's,
You know,
Elected officials love talking about trash.
if we just did it from Handy Hugo to, I mean, these three houses over here, the stuff piles up unbelievable, like Handy Hugo's. But from Handy Hugo's to Triangle Park, period.
That's what we
Because,
do.
I never saw it past, the trash is nowhere near as bad farther on all the way up.
That's as
That's
far as
where
we
you do
went
it.
That's as far as we went.
That
And that
costs,
costs $2,300
for a rollback twice
twice a week.
every week for 4
Yeah.
months.
2,300 a month, correct?
Yeah,
A month.
you could say it's a manager's responsibility and not get mad at the decision I make and be done.
You don't want to talk about it anymore?
No, I don't want you to have to,
It's a manager's responsibility.
I mean, it's a,
Maybe we'll leave it
I'm
up.
happy with that.
Leave it
I
up to the
support
manager.
that.
Manager, judiciously spend our funds to beautify the town as you see fit.
consensus?
Is that
Within
called paint the
department-
town?
Within the department allocated funds.
Consensus?
We
We
could
have
take some
consensus.
interest money.
Okay. Any announcements before we say goodnight? Our next meeting is June 6th.
Yes.
We have a
You
planning
still-
board meeting on Monday, May the 15th. Any other announcements?
I think you have you still have public comment.
Does anybody from the public want to comment?
Y'all made it.
Andy, come on up.
Just brief comment, revisiting the whole traffic thing. Some of it consensus that I heard out in the parking lot there Barricades versus speed bumps. I myself felt like the barricades were working pretty well. I witnessed people making the decision not to make a turn where there's a barricade. And that's a decision-making moment where it funneled traffic back onto 12. Once they're committed to being on the road, the speed bump is an effective thing once they're on the road, but their decision's already made. They're on that road causing problems. If we can keep them off that road in the first place with the barricade, it's effective. They're two different tools. The speed bumps do slow people down. We're only looking at about a 12-week window throughout the year where the traffic is an issue. Most effective speed bumps are there 12 months out of the year, 52 weeks out of the year. The barricades, we're only talking about weekends for a few weeks. Once you put down a functional speed bump, it's there almost forever. So I'm asking some caution on speed bumps. I think the barricades work pretty well for the seasonal issue. That's all.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm sorry, Debbie. Yeah, right?
Okay, I just have a couple. As for the speed bumps, I think they're a great temporary item to put in. But a few issues with them, just to keep in mind, they're loud. So any cars or any houses that are near the speed bumps are going to be unhappy. So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. I think this really comes to a bigger question or thought. And it may be time to really start looking at street design. Of course, it's not going to change anytime soon, but there's a lot of things we can do with our streets to slow down the traffic. And this is specifically for the streets that people are going too fast. Our streets are way too wide for residential streets. They need to be narrowed down. And you can basically kill two birds with one stone here. Some of those streets are extremely wide. We can narrow it down, put a row of trees in to slow the traffic down, and the remainder of that road, put a sidewalk in. So now you've got your sidewalks, you've narrowed it down, and there's plenty of studies out there. I can give you copies of these studies of narrowing streets, and wide streets kill people, and we need to slow that traffic down. So if we can do these types of things, it may be very useful for our town in the long run. This is nothing that's going to be fast. The speed bumps, the temporary speed bumps are great for now. And looking at the taxes, yes, we haven't increased taxes, but we really have increased taxes because our property values, as Paula was saying, have been going up. So that means our taxes are going up. So the revenue is going up, which is great. I mean, that's the way it is. We're glad our property values are going up somewhat, but not especially since we're retired now, or a lot of us are, in Southern Shores, and we're now on fixed incomes, which we weren't before. So just keep that in mind as we're talking about potentially raising taxes. Fire department, understand what you're talking about there, and I'm sure you've thought of all different ways to handle the issue, but maybe a blended fire department where we have volunteers and a few people that are full-time, the younger people that you can pull in. They're excited about coming, they learn, and maybe some of these houses that we have bought in Southern Shores, and maybe a few more, house our young firemen that are coming in to help them cover some of their expenses and cost, and understand they're only going to stay for a couple years. You train them, they then move on to a bigger and better fire department. But, just some thoughts there. You guys know how to work it. You're the experts on it. I have no idea if that would work. But with that, and then the last one, Town of Duck. They're not helping us. We're letting them go through our property. How about the next time through, we say, you can't come through Southern Shores for your beach nourishment. You do it through your town. If you're not going to help us, we're not going to help you. I think it's time to get tough with Duck until they start respecting us the same way we seem to respect them. So thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. Thank you, Sheila, for reminding me. I'd skipped the second public comment. My apologies to everyone. So now, council business. Again, we meet Tuesday, June 2nd, 6th. Planning board meets on the 15th of May. Any other announcements?
When is the July meeting?
When is the July meeting?
Yeah. July
11,
11?
right?
It's not,
That's what my magic book says.
it's not the 3rd or the 5th? The 11th.
July 4th is a Tuesday. It's on the back of the book.
Okay.
Okay.
He's not looking.
Mark, do you have anything for us tonight?
No,
Paula, do you have anything for us tonight?
The Albemarle
I do have
rule.
something.
Oops. Wait a minute. Paula, Mark.
I do have something. The county put out a great video on the county TV on e-bikes. So I hope you guys, they really did. And that kind of started here in Southern Shores. And I took the request to the GE, the Government Access Channel Program. Okay, so I thought it was well done, okay. Anyway, but we're glad they did it. All right, they
Thank you,
are
Mark.
everywhere.
Paul.
The Albemarle Rural Planning Organization met. Wes and I were both on the call. Wes, I don't think there was anything really to report back to council. They were just taking care of housekeeping business, basically.
Thank you. Matt?
Nope. Thank you.
I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate all the work that was done on the budget. I thank you all, staff members. Appreciate it very much. Hearing no other business, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, folks.